Buck, yesterday afternoon, I see some of these videos and I just feel so bad. We were just talking about this off air. Joe Biden is speaking. I want to play a couple of the cuts. But for many of you, the moment that went viral is after the speech when Biden turns around and appears to shake no one's hand and then looks uncomfortable and out of sorts. And if he's off the teleprompter at all, it definitely seems like there's nobody home oftentimes in Joe Biden's movements. But what they're having him say are such transparent lies that it's difficult to even comprehend that they think people are dumb enough to believe this. So here's Joe Biden talking about 70% of the increase in inflation, he says, is caused by Vladimir Putin's price hike. By the way, this was the guy who claimed that he would always take responsibility for everything when he was president, and he's now, despite the fact that inflation has been surging for 6+ months now, saying, oh, the reason why we're dealing with inflation now is Vladimir Putin.
Putin's invasion of Ukraine has driven up gas prices and food prices all over the world. Ukraine and Russia are the 1 and 2 largest wheat producers in the world. We're number 3. They're shut down. We saw that in yesterday's inflation data. What people don't know is that 70% of the increase in inflation was a consequence of Putin's price hike because of the impact on oil prices. 70%. We need to address these high prices, and urgently, for working folks.
Buck, do you think anyone actually believes, and let me just say this too, every time we play a cut of Joe Biden speaking, he sounds worse. I know he's reading directly off the teleprompter, but do you agree, even in the time we've been on for a year, in the time that we've been playing cuts of Joe Biden speaking, he sounds like he is slurring more. He sounds like he is older. I mean, it definitely feels like his deterioration is elevated to the extent where you can actually hear it, even just the audio without the video accompaniment.
He's clearly not up for this. He never really has been as president, and it's embarrassing for the country. Anybody who looks at this objectively would understand this. We're a country of 330, 340 million, give or take, right? This is not the best we can do. You know, the Democrat Party is not sending us their best with Joe Biden. This is absurd. And it's only possible because of the pandemic, as we've discussed so many times. When he lies in this way, and they keep this going, all you have to do is look at a chart of when inflation really started. And it almost coincides to the day, when you look at the chart, with when Joe Biden became president. Even Ratner now, who was a senior advisor for economic matters, I forget his exact title, under the Obama administration, has come out to say the $1.9 trillion that Biden spent on a purely partisan basis has really hurt in terms of inflation. That was a really bad. I mean, everyone should understand the federal budget in a normal year is what, a little over three point something trillion dollars. Just throwing $2 trillion of spending into the mix at the beginning of the year isn't a minor thing. Isn't a minor thing at all. And then want to spend $5 trillion more. So he's blaming Putin for this. And we also want to ask then, okay, so if inflation, if the American people are poorer, and if this is hurting us economically because of Putin, which is not true, but let's just follow this through for a second, are we managing to stop the war in Ukraine by pushing up U.S. gas prices and inflation? Does anyone think this has really affected Putin's decision-making at all? Are the sanctions having the intended effect? I think anybody would have to look at this and say, no, they are not.
We kind of hinted at this a couple days ago when the Quinnipiac poll most recently came out that had a 33% approval rating for Joe Biden. But I want to play you this as well, because I don't think this argument that Putin is responsible for our inflation. And by the way, in addition to the 1.9 million, the 1.2 trillion we decided to spend on infrastructure right as the overall inflation was skyrocketing in this country probably couldn't have been mistimed anymore either in terms of that impact. But CNN, even CNN is now saying Biden's net approval rating on the economy is the worst on record. No president has ever been worse on the economy than what Joe Biden's numbers are right now. Play cut 10.
If you look at jobs, the economy is doing pretty good. If you look at inflation, not so good. How do voters see it? How do Americans see it? This is the University of Michigan Consumer Confidence Index through this point of presidency. Look at that. Just 66 in April of 2022, going back since 1978. It is tied for the lowest. It was 66 in April of 1982. Of course, that was a good year for Democrats in the House of Representatives with the Republican president. And I'll just note, if you don't believe that the economy is hurting the Democrats and Joe Biden, look at the net approval rating. That's approval minus disapproval. Joe Biden at this point, minus 23 points. That is the worst on record since they started asking about economic job approval ratings back in 1978 with Jimmy Carter, who, of course, ended up the economy ate his presidency and put it to bits.
You almost wonder, Clay, if maybe Biden at some level is looking forward to the annihilation that Democrats will suffer in the House and hopefully enough in the Senate that Republicans take control, because then he can just say, my hands are tied. And they can run against, the insurrection, and they can do all the usual techniques of propaganda and distraction that they used the first time around for Biden. But between now and Election Day, what is the strategy? Between them now and the midterms, what is the strategy to make this any better? They don't have one. They have nothing.
No.
They have no ideas. They have no vision. They have no way forward that doesn't involve this getting substantially worse. And that's concerning, I think, for everybody because it's going to get ugly. Clay. It's going to get ugly for the economy, and then the Democrats' efforts to stay in power, I think, are going to also get really nasty. Because what can they do other than go on the attack? Republicans are racist, and everyone in the Republican Party is evil. There's nothing to point to that has worked for Joe Biden at all. Nothing. Nothing this regime has done has been good for the country that you can say is a real win.
I think the numbers that came out in that Quinnipiac poll, Buck, are staggering if you're looking at them and you are a Democrat. 31% approval among white voters. 26% approval, Buck, for Hispanic voters. That is potentially, now I don't want to get ahead of myself, but if those kind of numbers held up in the midterms, we're talking about a total re-examination of the Democrats having to sit down and say, what does our party stand for? I think that's how bad of a shellacking it could be. If they lose Hispanics, the Democratic Party coalition doesn't work. The Democratic Party coalition doesn't work if they get down to 70% approval among black voters. And I think, to your point, what's going to happen is they're going to stupidly go even harder on everything is racist, everything is sexist, everything is homophobic, everybody is anti-transgender, and they are going to continue to paint themselves into a corner because I think they're really held hostage by public perception on social media, which is not representative of the real world. And until they start to see some of these numbers translate in the electoral math and in the election math, I don't think they've realized how much of America they've lost, how many people they've turned off, how many people are tuning out of all the accusations that they are making. And I think it's going to be a revelatory moment for many people the day after the midterm elections come November.
I hope so.
Not for us or our listeners.
I think for the people that voted for Biden thinking that this would be a return to normalcy and steadiness, part of what the Democrats did when Trump was in office was create just a rolling series of fake crises, too. I mean, pre-COVID, there was the whole Russia collusion thing. The biggest news story in the American media for 3 years of Donald Trump's presidency was an abject lie, but it's one that they used to tell us meant the president was a traitor, that we were doing the bidding of Russia, that we couldn't trust the president, that he was a criminal. That has consequences on the public psyche. I mean, I think we're going through a period not only of COVID mass hysteria, but also of political hysteria, because you have these warring propaganda machines. And I do think that on the one side, you've got conservatives, Republicans, you get people who are just like, look, we want to try to be happy warriors here. We think there are important causes we want to fight for. I mean, the left has normalized everybody I don't like is Hitler and do what I say or else you're evil and you're a Nazi in a way that I don't know if we've ever really seen before. I think social media has played a big role in it. But I mean, the discourse continues to descend. Do you see any Democrats saying, you know what, maybe we were wrong about fill in the blank? No. They just keep lying. They just keep saying it's better than you think it is.
Again, what I believe happened, and this has been my big theory for a long time, Buck, is COVID camouflaged what would have been a seismic win for Donald Trump in 2020. And what I mean by that is that they changed all the rules, the rig job was in effect, and they managed to convince enough suburban women, because if you look at the numbers, those are the people that abandoned Trump the most. They managed to convince enough suburban women, a lot of suburban white women, frankly, a lot of women right now that are listening to us, because I think Trump ran. If I could change anything about Trump's 2020 campaign, he should have been saying to women, I'm going to open up back schools. You are having to bear the overwhelming brunt of schools being shut down. Moms got to get their kids educated. Moms got to stay home and make sure their kids are doing their work. Moms, and that's why I think we're seeing a mom revolution. I think we saw it with Youngkin. Republicans are finally realizing, wait a minute, we totally have missed the boat when it comes to speaking out to all the moms out there and saying, Democrats got this wrong and we didn't fight hard enough for you. And I think what you're seeing in 2022 is Republicans are hitting that note better. And I think it's going to be significant in 2024 as well. And that camouflaged COVID fear, what I call COVID fear porn, camouflaged what would have been, I think, a landslide election for Donald Trump. And the reason why I say that, Buck, is getting your ass kicked is clarifying. Anybody who's ever played a sport, if you put together the best game plan you got, you coach soccer, and you go out and you lose 6-0, you're like, hey, maybe our strategy wasn't very good. If you lose a football game 42-3, you go back and you say, man, we got to re-examine everything we did in putting this game plan together because we got whipped. And that's what the Democrats avoided. And I think the whipping got pushed back to 2022 and 2024.
It does feel like the last, call it 14 months or so, has just been the Democrat Party being mugged by reality on a daily basis on all these different issues. During the Obama years, I remember the first Obama term, there was all the pushing of Obamacare and how this is going to revolutionize healthcare and everyone's going to have. They had a message. I mean, you can argue with it or whatever. We can talk about how it worked, how it didn't work. But at least there was something that they were pointing to say, this is what we're doing. And there were some people who liked it. And there obviously were a lot of people who didn't. And the Tea Party was fighting against it. The Tea Party was fighting against spending at a time when $30 trillion, by the way, would have sounded like we would have the end of our
They were fighting at
future.
$10 trillion,
right.
Buck. We've added $20 trillion in debt since then.
But with this Biden administration, I sit here and I say, we're in a period of high inflation, a wide open border, the biggest war in Europe since World War II. Crime in major cities is getting people who can to flee in numbers we haven't seen in decades. And they want to lecture us about a carbon neutral economy? I mean, that's really where we are? They want to put out papers about transgender surgery for adolescents, which the White House did. That's not an exaggeration. They put out.
You're right.
This is what we're dealing with. I wonder if the period of COVID, particularly for the left, has actually created not just a mass hysteria, but a kind of mass mental illness that we're all having to suffer through together as a country because their faculties of reason increasingly appear broken to me. That's what the mainstream Democrat Party looks like to me these days. We can't even agree on things that we should always be able to agree on, like, hey, your policy on the border or your policy on crime isn't working. Let's do something else. It's like they live in an alternate universe. But fortunately, we live in reality here, folks, and it is Friday, so we're gonna have some fun too. Although we're just trying to hold the Democrat Party accountable, and that means, unfortunately, it's rough, man, Clay. It's a slow moving train wreck that we are all living in together in the Biden administration.